All right, folks, Yishai Fleischer here in the beautiful holy city of Jerusalem on Jerusalem Day. 58 years since liberation and reuniting this city with itself, because half of it was occupied by Jordan since 1948. So we liberated that, but we also reunited with ourselves. We reunited Jerusalem with its children, that's the Jewish people, and with the presence of God, which we're trying to bring in. We reunited with the remnants of the first temple, second temple, and started preparing for the third temple. Behind me is a hotel that's going to serve the third temple. That's the Mount Zion Hotel. They're fixing it up right now. And there's nothing more beautiful in my mind than development. Developing this holy city is in itself a tremendously holy project, and we're part of it. My interview today, the following video, is with Deron Spielman. Deron Spielman is one of the great developers of the city of David, which is the ancient part of Jerusalem. It's an amazing story, and his new book, When the Stone Speaks. So check it out, and before you do, don't forget to support the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the liberation of the Jewish state, of the land of Israel, and that can be found at fightforisrael.org, fightforisrael.org, as well as buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. We are indeed part of this great liberation. You are living in this generation, and God has put us in this time to be a part of it. Let's check out one of the great leaders of this effort with my conversation with Deron Spielman. Check it out. All right, folks, Yishai Fleischer here. I'm sitting down with Deron Spielman, who is the former vice president of the city of David and also a major in the reserves in the IDF in the spokesman's office. You see him all over the media. He's always answering the tough questions. And let me ask you a tough question, Doron. Where are we right now? What are we doing here?
Well, now you're in an anomaly. You're in a historical mistake because we just left the old city, and you are actually in the old city of Jerusalem, in the city of David, where underneath the ground, there's an entire buried city. It's like Atlantis, but it happens to be true. And if you open up your Bible and you're looking for Jerusalem, Yishai, it's right here under our feet.
Wow, I thought Jerusalem was like the old city and out that way, but it turns out it's actually to the south, right? It kind of goes south-north, and its focal point is the Temple Mount.
Right. And that's why for thousands of years when people went to the old city, digging for treasure and kind of, just hoarding anything they could in the old city, they left the actual gem of ancient Jerusalem undisturbed. And so the gift to humanity was the fact that this site was forgotten. But now when we try to remind everyone it's here, they're like, what? It can't be down here. The Jews, the Christians, the Armenians, the Muslims are like, isn't it up there? King David was here in this little area.
All right, but uncovering it is not such a simple proposition. There is an Arab village here. Right? Like, how do you create an archaeological site when there's homes above, and not only that, some of these homes are not so friendly?
With great delicacy. Just like an archaeologist uses one of these little brushes to clean a stone, here you have to be able to deal with the fact that this land was Jewish owned originally.
Right.
And the Arabs that are living here were settled here illegally by Jordan. But in any case, you have to respect them. You have to keep your eye on them if there's any that are violent, which there have been. But you have to have strength and know why we're here, and at the same time be able to carry out archaeology. And one of the things we've done is there is no other site in the world that has spent more money, I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars, Yishai, to hold up the ground level here so we could dig the most incredible archaeology in the world underneath. And why are we willing to pay that price? Because we want it to happen. I don't want World War III here. I want the site to succeed. This site is what will win the ultimate war over the Jewish people.
Now, I was with you 12 years ago. We shot a video and you showed me a lot of stuff. It was very good. I mean, I feel like we were shooting in black and white back then.
I have less hair, and your beard's a little bit more refined.
That's right, a little less gray. That's true. But there's something in that video that's around today that wasn't around back then, and it wasn't revealed back then, and that is the pilgrimage road.
Yes.
All right, it wasn't there. It's not in the video.
It wasn't that we didn't know.
Right. The pilgrimage road, tell me about this find a little bit. Tell me what this thing is.
This is probably the most magnificent find that's ever been made, and I'll tell you why. We were digging at a pool down at the bottom of the city of David where there was a sewage leak, and we uncovered this massive pool, 1.5 Olympic size in its size. It's massive. We understood it was a ritual bath, that you cleansed yourself before going in the temple. But the archaeologist had a problem. He said, if this is the pool, the bath, how do you walk half a mile to the temple without touching someone impure? If I'm pure and you're impure and I touch you, whoop,
It's over.
It's over. I got to go back. And he said this, Professor Ronnie Reich said, if I'm right, then we are going to find a road for the pure that goes all the way up inside the temple.
Wow.
And we found that road. And what is so unreal, you know, we say in Hebrew, how do you say pilgrimage? Chag. Chag Sameach means happy holiday, but actually means happy pilgrimage.
Right.
The Muslims have understood this for years.
It's the Hajj.
It's the Hajj.
Right.
And so we actually, it's incredible. The Chag, which appears in the book of Exodus, which gave birth to all these other Hajjes and Hajjes, this is the actual culmination of the pilgrimage experience from the Bible.
Right.
And the road is not just something you look at. This is not the Met in New York. This is not, you know, the Louvre. This is archaeology that you walk on and you experience. We haven't covered those stones. Your shoes and the shoes of people here 3,000 years ago are on the exact same place. There's nothing else like it in the world.
The Bible makes a big deal out of this pilgrimage. You know, today when people move from America to Israel, it's called Aliyah. Baked into the idea of living in the land of Israel is an internal Aliyah, internal going up. 3 times a year, the Torah commands the Jewish people to go up to the Jerusalem and to the Temple Mount to sacrifice, to offer there. So it's an incredible, like, there's something spiritual in this act. We're going to be on this pilgrimage road. It's about going up. It's an upgoing road physically, and it's something that's supposed to make you feel like, it's supposed to give you that aha moment for the rest of the year. It's that spiritual batteries recharged. I call it spiritual suntan. You get up there, you're like, wow, you know? And you've uncovered the way it was done when Israel was at its first and second Commonwealth, mostly second Commonwealth, right? That makes Jerusalem not just as a tourist attraction, it really is a pilgrimage that you come up to the temple 3 times a year, and you've uncovered that feeling, that sense, and really maybe that yearning as well.
You know, you hit it on the head, and I have to tell you, people come here from all over the world. People who know the Bible, people who don't know the Bible, Jews, Christians, even Muslims, they come here. People from India come here. And the amazing thing is they walk up this road, when they leave, they look back and they say, wow, Israel today is the 3rd Commonwealth.
Right.
And this road, with the exception of one day, the temple being built and, you know, and peace on earth, this road is the closest thing you get to connecting with that experience. And it like shifts, it's a paradigm shift for people. And you see, by the way, the road is like a funnel. So you start wide and you end up being squished shoulder to shoulder. And when you talk about the spiritual journey, I think that was part of it. Like,
right.
You know, you're from the tribe of Benjamin, I'm from Judah, here's a non-Jew, here's this, and we're squished together, undergoing an experience as a people.
And a little bit, giving up a little bit of our individuality and becoming kind of a collective.
Yes.
Starting wherever, from Rehovot and from Ra'anana and from Eilat, and coming together up to Jerusalem. Does this book, your new book, does it cover the story of the Pilgrimage Road?
Yes, this is the first, look, the Israel's enemies did not want the story of the Pilgrimage Road to be uncovered.
Well, they didn't want the road to be uncovered.
They didn't want the road to be uncovered, and they don't want the story of the Pilgrimage Road to be uncovered because it shows how they tried to stop it so many times. And there was 8 or 9 different stages of them stopping it. And the book tells a story they didn't want you to know because it shows not only this incredible story, but how you had major institutions, violent people, the head of the Muslim Brotherhood in Israel, and so many efforts to stop the road that now when people go on it, they're like, who would ever want to stop this? And it's an embarrassment to them. It's an embarrassment to them, and it shows how pathetic they are. I mean, the Quran knew we were here, right? The Quran, how many I was just checking this. Jews appear in the Quran 8 times because they knew we came from Judea, and the children of Israel appear 40 times. I mean, Muhammad knew where we were from.
Sure.
What's this craziness that today they're saying we're not from here? And the book...
Well, the return of the Jewish people is a threat. The fact that we were from there is fine. The problem is we're back. And also that means that our God is back, right? That our strength is back. And that is the affront. The affront is not where you're from. That's fine. You're from there. That's fine. But now it's Islamic land. Now it's Jewish land again. Now you're back. Now your God is appearing in this world. Oh, that's definitely an affront to radical Islam.
That doesn't bode well for the caliphate.
Right.
the Islamic caliphate that's taking over the Middle East, whether it's Iran or Turkey, whoever. When you come here, and this is what speaks so loudly, when they see that this is in the press, when they see we have a discovery and it makes it on the cover of a thing, they say, wait a second, we're indoctrinating hundreds of millions of people. Today they are saying that Muhammad was here first and that Muhammad was Canaanite and there are no Jews, and you come here, And the book clearly pulls the mask off of all this and has countless discoveries, and even Palestinians who are supporting the discoveries, right? They admit it as well. We have the guidebook to the Temple Mount, which boy have they tried to bury, which says on it, and I quote, "It is without a doubt that this is the site that David and Solomon built their altar to God."
So that's a Muslim book put out by the Muslim Waqf in what? In
1930 to 1935.
Okay, they put it out.
They put it out.
We're proudly here where King Solomon had his temple.
And I used to be able to buy it on eBay for $8. And we did some press, and now they know. And so now it's $800 a copy.
Wow.
Because
they've driven up the price.
We've driven up the price because they know. And so really, I mean, they're obviously not going to like my book, but maybe, but I think your average person who wants to discern the truth, or a college kid who's scared. I mean, he has to leave his dorm. What's he going to be friends with Jews? I mean, they tell us a Jew today even has a little star sticking out. He's like a hero. She's a hero. Here, I think for them to understand the real story, it's critical. And the truth will win. The city of David today, you and I were here 12 years ago, and we battled since then, everyone, even a White House. But we're still here.
That's right.
The story's going to win. The truth will win. This is good against evil.
You know, Doron, over the years of working in media, I have learned a formula that I only came to recently, which is legitimacy equals security. When Israel's legitimate, when it makes sense why it's fighting, then it has the ability to fight in the theater of operations. It's not limited by anything. But if it's not legitimate, well, it doesn't receive arms, it can't do everything it wants to do. So there's a battle over legitimacy. And here at the city of David, we're surrounded by an Arab neighborhood, and that Arab neighborhood has fought the legitimacy of this site. The rights to dig, the historical veracity of it, because they know that the more we dig and find out the truth here about Jewish history, the more that gets uncovered, well, the more legitimacy we have to be in Jerusalem. And so therefore that fight for legitimacy is something you fought a lot. You talk about it in the book. Tell me a little bit about that battle for legitimacy, for historical accuracy, for our narrative.
It's not just here in this neighborhood. And by the way, there are Arabs in this neighborhood whose lives have increased dramatically because of the site. But there is a deeper narrative here, Yishai, that goes back decades and decades. It goes to the heart of the Palestinian national leadership. It didn't just begin here in the city of David, in Silwan, in Jerusalem. I mean, when Hamas charged over the border into Israel, people keep saying, there was an intelligence failure. There was a deeper failure. There was a historical failure. I mean, for years before they charged over the borders, they've been trying to stop the excavations here. Why? Because they know that if we uncover a piece of pottery here that has a Jewish name on it, it says Jews have been here for thousands of years. But they're teaching these kids in Gaza that the Jews have no history here whatsoever. And so therefore, you look around this neighborhood and they come under pressure by Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. Stop these guys, because this is the silver bullet. Every time we find something, they're like, no, how are we gonna rewrite our narrative? And so they've been driven, not everyone, but there's been crazy stuff that's happened here.
Like
almost
what?
Anything. It's been intimidation by the Northern Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood came here and pressured our Arab workers who were making a good living and a good salary to quit. They put their names on telephone poles in white with red names in Arabic.
Which is almost like a death warrant.
Yeah, it's like Hamas in Gaza.
Right.
If you're not out there, if you're trying to bring human aid to your family instead of giving it to Hamas, it's a death warrant. There was an assassination attempt on the leader of the city of David a number of times in which he was saved. And when these didn't work, when we did not stop the excavations like they were helping, they took us to court with left-wing NGOs, European funded, as you know so well.
Right.
And they bogged us down for years with unlimited funds on fallacious charges. At the end of the day, we're thrown out of court.
Right.
And when that didn't work.
So bullying, physical bullying, death threats, then the lawfare track. Okay, what else?
And then they had to up their game because it's not working. They're not winning the people of Israel because the city of David is slowly becoming, the Israeli people realize, and tourism from abroad, this is the Acropolis, And so what do? You up your game. So they bring in the State Department. During that lawsuit, they wanted the U.S. State Department to issue a condemnation of this excavation. And it's recorded in WikiLeaks, which I go through in the book, where they sent some guy to me to basically say he met with me, wrote down, Jewish settler, I met with him. And then he includes everyone else who's saying that the homes are falling down because of the dig and we're inciting the whole area. Then the Muslim
So another leg of the narrative war is that now you are the victimizer.
Yes.
Right. So first they're victimizing, bullying. The next one is lawfare, and the third one is an international campaign to say they're the victims by your aggression. You're killing Arabs. You're killing children. You're doing all this stuff. You're breaking their houses. They can't live anymore. These are all tactics in the narrative war against Israel.
This was, I'm telling you, Yishai, you said it so well, because it was like a microcosm of exactly what was going to happen to Israel and Gaza, right? It's the exact perversion of the numbers, calling us the occupiers and colonizers, where our own Arab workers are being threatened by an illegal terror regime. By the way, when they came to me from the State Department, I said to him, you care about these Arabs? He said, yeah, I care about the Arabs. I said, well, you know what happens when they sell a home to a Jew? He's like, yeah, begrudgingly, yeah, they're threatening them. I said, well, if you care about them, don't you care that they're being threatened by a terror organization? And so what happened was, basically, as more and more stuff started coming out of the ground, and it's proving Jewish history so clear. I mean, you can't erase the fact that a Jewish name is here 1,100 years before Muhammad. They got more and more and more nervous, where they were willing to do anything. And it even reached the White House at one point. That was, I say, the dark spot in American history, when the White House condemned the site in 2013.
Which president is that?
Obama.
Obama, okay.
Obama personally.
So President Obama condemns the city of David for digging and finding Jewish history, which substantiates the Jewish narrative, the Jewish claim. And actually, if you look around, you'll see that the city of David is an archaeological site, but it's also an educational site. Maybe first and foremost, it's an educational site. It's a teaching site, and thousands of people come through here every single day. They're learning about Jewish history, and people come through here, they're like, oh, wow, Jewish history runs deep. Well, that substantiates your right in this land. That undermines a claim that there's a Palestine. And so really it's about this legitimization.
It is, and again, I go into the book that when do they really get scared? Exactly what you're saying. When they saw the average Israeli, not wearing a yarmulke and everything, the average Israeli would come here and they leave here, and they're all riled up to fight for the land. So you and I just walked in here. One guy.
You see, that's another aspect of how legitimacy equals security.
Wow.
Right? If you are like, this is a legitimate fight, I have every right to this thing, then I'm a better soldier. Right? You see,
and that's what scares them, right? Because as long as Jews are, protesting in the streets on Kaplan and saying we want to make peace at any cost, they're not scared. It's the Jews that wake up.
Right.
This is the wake up place. And so you and I just walked in. Some guy told me he's here with a group of soldiers that just left Gaza after 330 days.
Wow.
And why'd he bring them here? Because if you want to heal them,
right,
and give them energy to go back, they're not fighting for Balfour.
That's right. But by the way, just as an aside, but a related aside, PTSD a lot of times comes from situations where people are not mentally prepared for what they're going to face, or they don't understand what they're facing. And then when something shocks them, they fall into this PTSD thing. Like, this is a healing, like you said, because it's like, oh yeah, now I understand what I was fighting for. I understand why I needed to sacrifice. By the way, I sat on Shabbat with a soldier who told me that he buried 8 of his friends.
Wow.
Okay? But legitimacy gives you that strength, that conviction, and that also honors the fallen. So there's many layers of that. Okay, let's shift to a related topic, which is, you're writing this book, okay? You have tremendous experience here. Everybody here knows you. You're really part and parcel of this place. Then you decided to write a book. But part of legitimacy is getting a good publisher to get it out there. And that's not a simple thing. There's a lot of people who are not going to want to publish this because, well, the bullies, one of the tactics might come after them, or the progressives. Somebody's going to be like, hey, you published this book and now I'm boycotting you, et cetera, et cetera. Some people say, I don't need it. I don't need this. So tell me about who published this book, why they agreed, and that process.
So it's amazing. This is published by Hachette Book Group, which is the 4th largest publisher in the world.
Wow.
And, it's amazing. When I wrote this book, I believed in the narrative. This was before October 7th. I think after October 7th, and I really praise the publisher, they realized what was happening on campus. And they looked around, they realized everywhere a Jew looks, he's being accused of being a colonizer, an occupier, and has no connection to the land, where the average American, the average person in the world, if you ask them 2 or 3 questions, they know this is the Holy Land. They knew the Jews were here. Somewhere along the way, someone kind of cuts this and says no. And when I presented this to the publisher, they said, you know what? We're going to give this a stage because it's not vulgar. It's all grounded. There are 160 footnotes behind this. On one hand, it's the story of the discovery of the city of David and the Indiana Jones adventure underneath the ground, and how Queen Victoria sent someone to uncover the Ark of the Covenant. But then as it walks you through history and it shows how anti-Israel forces try to undermine you, it just presents it as fact, just like the city of David. I called it When the Stones Speak, right? Because Dr. Eilat Mazar, when she would dig here and people would challenge her and say, that can't be this, that can't be King David, she'd say, you know what? Let the stones speak.
Right.
And so that's the theme of the book. And it's not my opinion.
Right.
It's just I'm just unveiling the fact, and it's a miracle, honestly, that they went for a book like this.
And it's so important. I was just with a group of pastors, and they're like, well, what is the book that you recommend? You know, and I have a few books, but I sometimes feel that Israel suffers. I know where I work in Hebron, is that one of the things we suffer there at that site is that there's too much info. We don't know how to pack it down. We don't know how to present it, because it's just like washing your toothbrush under a waterfall. So it's just like you can't do it because there's too much mass. So you did a great job by condensing it and telling us the story. It's very important.
I mean, one of the stories is from here. I mean, there's a metal grate sitting right next to where you and I are.
Right.
That when you and I were here, I don't know, a few years ago, and we did a story in the city.
It was 12 years ago that we shot.
It was 12
years ago.
And you look the same, and I look 12 years older. How'd that happen? How'd that happen? You know, you and I talked about King David's palace.
Yeah.
And the clay seals that were found. Now, those clay seals, first of all, have names written from the Bible, from the book of Jeremiah, 2 people who tried to kill the prophet Jeremiah. And you and I covered this at the beginning.
There's a list of how many people in the Bible have been substantiated scientifically. I think it's at 54.
That makes sense.
Some large amount. But you guys are some of the top of the list here.
We are, and it keeps happening every day. And the funny thing is, when you and I talked about it, we talked about Jeremiah being thrown into a pit. Right? Since then, the pit was found. It's underneath where you and I are sitting now.
Oh my gosh.
And when that happened, talking about this kind of the battle, so 60 Minutes called. And I had Leslie Stahl here, who's, you know, still to this day, still around on 60 Minutes. She comes here and she brings her husband. And she says, you know, I've never brought my husband to a dig before, to anything. He wanted to come here. She goes, can you give us a little tour before? So he's crying. I bring them to the palace, show them the seals, and she's all choked up. And then the camera rolls, and it was like a windshield wiper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Not a word about those biblical seals in her entire piece. It was all trying to uproot the city of David. And that's
sad. That's a sad story.
And that's honestly, all that time ago, Yishai, is when it first said to me, I have to write a book, because if everyone else is trying to chop us out, except you and a few other heroes of the Jewish people and people who seek truth throughout the world.
Archaeology substantiates the claim of indigeneity. Okay, so international law in 1917, 1920, 1923 was written with the idea that the Jewish people have a right to this land indelibly. It's already baked in, and that international law recognized Jewish indigeneity in the land. Archaeology substantiates that claim. So it's a kind of scientific way to prove our narrative and our claim. And so it goes back. That's why so much of the fight is on that archaeology. And you have these, you know, I just watched a video where this young lady who claims that she's Jewish says that there's no proof for Jewish life here from 2,000, 3,000 years ago. It's all about the proof. It's all about that's why there's a war over archaeology. So let's just talk for one more second about this idea of like the war of archaeology. Another site far away from here is Joshua's altar. And it's constantly being attacked. This is a 3,500-year-old site.
Har Eval, yeah.
Har Eval. Is the state of Israel doing everything it can to protect archaeological sites? Does it see the value in these places? Does it have a conflict because these places are often in Judea and Samaria? Tell me about the war on archaeology.
So first of all, the woman that you're quoting, it's very sad for me to hear that, because that's an exact quote. She's in good company with who? Ikrim Sabri, who is the Mufti of the Temple Mount. And I quote, he says, not a single stone you turn over in Jerusalem has a single Jewish marking. This is the art of the Jews to deceive the world.
Wow.
And it's
that's narrative warfare.
That's him right there. And it gets all the way to this Jewish girl in the United States. You come here and you flip over every stone and it has a marking. You know, it took us a long time, Yishai, to get the government involved here. And here we're in the center of Jerusalem, right? We're 2 seconds from the Western Wall and next to the King David Hotel, basically. At first, the government didn't want to touch this place because there were Arabs living here. But Davidullah founded the project, Little David. He came here. And we began funding an excavation, and step by step by step, first it was the soldiers, then some of the university students, then some of the politicians, until Israel understood it was in their best interest. And ultimately here, to answer your question, if the Obama White House condemned us, the Trump White House put a sign right next to where you and I are standing. It's the only American heritage site in the whole country. And so it shows, like you said, legitimacy. This is the greatest example. And I think the state of Israel has not done this in all the other sites. Hebron is the main example, right? Hebron is, you and I joke about, that's really the place it all began. And Israelis have not yet understood that this is the battle. This is the actual battle. We can stand up there and talk about how we made the cell phone and how we have, the Balfour Declaration.
Cherry tomatoes.
Cherry tomatoes and Jaffa oranges. But at the end of the day, the other side says, yeah, you're colonialists, you stole the land. And the answer is, we're indigenous here. You know what? You want to be Palestinian, you want to be a part of that people that was really created in the 1940s? You want to call yourself indigenous? No problem. But there can be many indigenous people. There is no one more indigenous on the earth today than the Jewish people in the land of Israel. Right. And that's what Israelis need to understand. Has the most legitimacy. Right. And that is truly the message, honestly, in the book and the Hebrew version of the book, that Israelis have got to understand what the Palestinians understand on a history that isn't true, where they think that they've been here forever. Israelis have to understand they actually have been.
The so-called Palestinians understand where the focal point of the fight is. Right? They understand that it's about legitimacy,
and they're very specific.
Right, and they're undermining it all the time. Yeah, they're very good at that. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the real star of the show, and that's King David himself. And King David has become more of a star recently, and I would venture to guess that Ir David, the city of David, has inspired more conversation about King David. And now the studios in America are putting out this King David, the young King David video, and people are watching it, and people are like, King David is back in my life. Let's just talk a little bit about the consciousness of King David as a character. Even Arabs respect Daud, right? And let's talk a little bit about King David. Does he come alive here? We know about Jeremiah and his plight, the burning of Jerusalem. Things are bad. But what about when things are strong and things are good, like a hero like King David?
I think it's fascinating because in a woke generation, King David is like, not a good guy. I mean, we had somebody call us here and say, we want to do a judgment. We want to set up a jury and judge King David. I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm sure you want to judge King David, right?
Wow.
But it's what we know, and it's incredible, is it's King David's complexity that makes him human. And so just like we know woke is just a small branch, most people look at this guy and he's like, you know what? He's an author, he's a poet, he's the greatest warrior, and it's the greatest story ever told. And just by pushing it longer and longer, I now think we're over the tipping point. He was Me Too'd and all that other stuff. And now today you see people come in here and they connect to David's authenticity because he's real. It's not something you would write and make up. You'd never create a character like this where your character fails so much. And people have hope in him. And I see people coming in, the soldiers, there's 5 pastors here that are gonna be bringing large groups of pastors. And people come and it's a hard world out there. And you're being battled against, there's a lot of untruth. And you get a guy like David, you're like, wow, there's hope. There's hope. I can fall and I get back up again. And the proof here, time and again, all those seals we keep finding, those clay seals, they're all in the line of David.
Right.
It's amazing. Here, David was so successful for so long. What we find along the way are all the people who lived in that palace. Zedekiah, Hezekiah, Yoshiao, and all of them are his dynasty, and it's incredible, and it's caught up.
It's not just King David, it's the Davidic Dynasty, and we're about to read the book of Ruth, which is all about the legitimization of King David as a legitimate Jewish king.
Legitimacy that comes out of something that, if you don't look carefully,
seems illegitimate.
Seems illegitimate. And that's the trick, right? It's finding truth. You got to dig. Yeah. It's not a headline by some crazy news outlet and the guys marching in campus. We have work to do. I mean, that's what you do better than anyone I know. You kind of clean the diamond, and then we kind of wake up and look at it, and that's what King David was doing. It's complicated, but there's real truth there, and that's why this site, when we open the pilgrimage road and we open the various places here, every tour of Jerusalem, Yishai, will start here. Every tour, because you start with David.
Well, this is ancient Jerusalem. King David is a diamond. Jerusalem is a diamond in this world, and this book is now a diamond. I really want to congratulate you on the giving birth to this book, which is an inroads for so many people to understand the story of Israel, the story of King David, the story of Jerusalem, the story of modern Israel recouping its lost 2,000-year-old heritage that had been lost, had been buried under stones, and now the stones, the ancient stones, speak. So congratulations.
Thank you, my friend.
And let's keep pushing it, keep pushing that narrative.
You can get it online, you can get it on Amazon and everywhere else, and it supports me, it supports City of David, and it supports this publisher who honestly had the courage to allow an unapologetic book of truth about Israel to go out there. It supports them. Let's get more. Let's get more stuff out there.
All right, folks, Yishai Fleischer here on a beautiful hilltop in Jerusalem. Behind me, the Mount Zion Hotel being built. What an honor and a pleasure it is to be part of the liberation, the renewal, the rebuilding, the renovation of this great city and bringing God's presence down into this world through his holy city, the city of David, the eternal city. Check out ways to support the show by liking, subscribing, commenting. Check out our new store below as well. And ways to support the show, including buymeacoffee.com/Yishai and fightforisrael.org. Fightforisrael.org, because you are a fighter for Israel. God bless you. I'm going to go enjoy Jerusalem. I'll be thinking of you. God bless you, and blessings from the land of blessings and the holy city of Jerusalem. And shalom.